Anime dads don't play around when it comes to flexing. They're not just there to protect their kids. In fact, whenever they get serious, they flex so hard the entire cast has to take a step back. So while it's not Father's Day, we're going to take a look at some moments when anime dads flex too hard. Ready? Let's begin.
生き方は自分次第で変えられる。この糸は離さないでやる。やれやれ。
Let's talk about Sakamoto days, where Sakamoto faces off against Apart, one of the death row inmates. The fight is basically John Wick meets Dadbot, where Sakamoto moves with terrifying precision despite looking like he should be asking for extra soy sauce at the counter. Apart comes in guns blazing, full of confidence and style, only to realize he's in a Looney Tunes skit where every trap backfires and every move gets countered by Sakamoto's sheer "I'm too cool to break a sweat" energy.
この校訓が大嫌いだったよ。クースウルトラ
Endeavor is the hero who proved that true fire is in your willpower. This man was seen more as a villain than a hero in My Hero Academia. While Endeavor wasn't considered a great father, the moment he squared up against that Nomu without a single thought just shows how much he cares about humanity and his son, of course. The Nomu is a monster built for war. It's not your usual monster that newbies can take on by themselves, but Endeavor faces everything, every single pain, and fights with nothing else but will. And when it all peaks with Prominence Burn, Endeavor flying higher and higher, and the city below holding its breath, the shot of him raising his fist in victory, scarred, half dead, but standing tall. That's when the world stops mourning the symbol they lost and starts believing in the fire that still burns.
君の息子も物好きですね。
俺の息子をバカにするな。
Moving on, we have a fight between Hohenheim and Pride from FMAB. It's the kind of fight that proves that sometimes you only need the pressure of your presence to subdue your opponent. This fight demanded the kind of patience that only someone like Hohenheim could pull off. Pride, the most cunning and sinister of the homunculi, comes at him with everything. Shadow tendrils slicing through the ground, psychological games meant to rattle even the strongest mind, and his usual aura of intimidation that puts countless enemies on their knees. But Hohenheim doesn't even flinch. The man barely moves an inch, and that alone says everything. It's the ultimate power flex. Not reacting, not panicking, just standing there like a wall of wisdom and experience. That's a flex only true alchemy legend could pull off. Moving on, we have Doji absolutely flexing on Dagon. Dagon had the upper hand against some of the more capable sorcerers in the Shibuya incident. His domain expansion gave him absolute control, guaranteed hits, and the perfect environment to drown everyone in his ocean of Shikigami. By all logic, the battle should have been over. But then Doji shows up, a man with zero cursed energy, and that's what makes his fight so iconic. The second Doji enters the domain, everything changes. Dagon, who was thriving, suddenly looks like prey. Doji doesn't hesitate, doesn't strategize, he just grabs Maki's weapon, smiles like a man who was born for violence, and tears through Dagon as if the domain rules don't even apply to him. And then we reach one of the most legendary moments in all of Dragon Ball. A scene that shows what happens when a warrior fueled by nothing but pride finally embraces something greater than himself, his family. I'm talking about Vegeta's final atonement against Majin Buu. Up until this point, Vegeta had been defined by rivalry, ego, and his obsession with surpassing Goku. But when faced with a threat that could erase everything, he finally chooses to act not as the cold prince of Saiyans, but as a father, a husband, and a protector of Earth. He knocks Trunks out with a gentle tap, tells him to take care of Bulma, and then embraces his fate. It's the kind of dad flex that echoes through anime history. Next up, we got Minato versus Obito during the Nine Tails attack, and honestly, this is one of the coldest flexes in all of Naruto. Obito shows up thinking he's got the most busted ability with Gamui, you know, that untouchable you can't hit me energy, but Minato takes one look, runs the calculations in his head, and within seconds, he's already figured out how to break it. Man literally outthinks a space-time jutsu in the middle of battle, and he does it so effortlessly and cleanly. He baits Obito, teleports behind him with flying Raijin, slams a Rasengan, and tags him with a seal all in one move. Obito went from cocky to shook real fast. Watch your jaw, cause it just dropped. What's wild is that Minato still ends up having to sacrifice everything right after, but in that moment, he reminded everyone why he's the Yellow Flash, the fastest brain and the fastest hands in the ninja world.
後ろを気ぃつけた方がええな。
古いね。
Up next, we have one of the most brutal flexes in Hunter x Hunter. Silver Zoldyck versus Cheetu. But wait, calling this a fight might be a bit too generous, because this was Silver showing up, pressing the delete button, and then just walking off. See, Cheetu is this cocky Chimera ant who spent the entire arc hyping himself up, building a new technique and flexing his speed like he's untouchable. Then Silver literally drops out of the sky like a meteor and one-shots him before he even knows what happened. Just straight up, a dad saying, it's bedtime. That's the difference between a cocky Chimera and the heir of the most feared assassin in the world.
そうか。
Isshin Kurosaki from Bleach is the only character who can absolutely own Aizen with a finger. The way he sends Aizen flying with a middle finger cracks me up every single time. Like, bro, is that all you got? Aizen had been hyping himself as this unstoppable mastermind, and everyone else had to bring their full arsenal to even touch him. Then Isshin walks in, barely warmed up, and casually shows that being Ichigo's dad is about delivering a mean one-shot humiliation. Even in a weakened state, having given up most of his Soul Reaper powers to live on Earth, he still outclasses top-tier captains. This man just flexed his finger, and that's all it took. Next is the fight between a son and his central forefather from Yu Yu Hakusho, Yusuke versus Raizen. So Yusuke always shows up like he's got something to prove. Raizen, however, doesn't even leave his throne. The guy just casually wrecks Yusuke without even moving an inch, like swatting a fly while still leaning back in his chair. That's just peak dad energy now, isn't it? This is basically a twisted father-son bonding session, and we can't even call this a proper fight. It was just Raizen playing with his food and flexing hard as an anime dad. The power gap is insane, but instead of breaking Yusuke, he builds him up. It shows us exactly how terrifying Raizen was in his prime, and why Yusuke needed that tough love to level up. Raizen cemented himself as one of anime's coolest dad figures with this scene. Moving on, we have straight up generational trauma. Dracula, the apex predator, the king of vampires, the dude who could snap nations in a second versus his own son Alucard. Now, if you haven't noticed, Dracula was clearly holding back while fighting his son. Bro had claws sharp enough to split a mountain, but at the last second, he closed his fist. Instead of tearing his son apart, he chose to throw punches. Now, that's flexing on another level. Dracula was so strong that the only person who could stop him was himself. Sure, he lost not by Cypher, not by Belmont, but by his own grief, by his humanity sneaking back in. But make no mistake, before that moment, he reminded the world why his name alone made armies tremble.
人に物を投げるんじゃありません。人に尖ったものを向けるんじゃありません。地獄の底から戻ってきた。あげー！頭の爽やかなお父さんと。落ち着け。こんなことやってる場合じゃ。
We have one of those Gintama moments where you realize just how insane Sonachi can make a fight between two people who happen to share the same blood. Umibos, the strongest alien hunter in the galaxy, goes toe-to-toe with his own son Kamui, who just so happens to be one of the most bloodthirsty Yato alive. I think we all know why this battle is legendary and how ridiculous the flexing gets. Umibos fights with one arm and he still manages to push Kamui back, showing that the bold monster hasn't lost his edge even when against one of the Yato clan's finest. Fighting your own son while injured and still holding your ground like a wall of steel. That's Umibo showing why he's called the ultimate alien hunter.
自信だ。でかいぞ。こんな時に。収まった。
もう心配ねえ。
When most anime dads flex, it's usually about protecting their kids, showing wisdom, or proving that they've still got some skills. But Yujiro is the kind of man who flexes against the planet itself. In one of Baki's most infamous scenes, the ground starts to rumble, an earthquake tearing through Japan with a kind of force that would usually send thousands running for their lives. But Yujiro doesn't run. He doesn't even look concerned. He just smirks, winds up, and punches the ground. And just like that, the earthquake stops. Now think about that for a second. A tectonic plate, one of the literal foundations of the earth, is being told to sit down and shut up by a single man. People talk about super strength in anime all the time, but Yujiro is on another level. And if we're talking about dads who redefine what it means to be a warrior, you can't skip over Tors versus Askeladd's men in Vinland Saga. This scene is straight up legendary. Tors, the troll of Jom, walks into a trap surrounded by some of the deadliest mercenaries in the Viking world, and he fights them unarmed. He wipes the floor with them. He takes down berserkers, seasoned killers, full-grown warriors, and not a single fatality. Even when he smashes someone in the gut or drops them into the ocean, he makes sure they survive. Now that's the difference between Tors and every other Viking. Honestly, when we see Tors dismantling Askeladd's entire crew without spilling blood, we realize what real strength looks like. That's why Tors is a total legend. Next up, we've got Captain Shinomiya versus Kaiju number 9, and honestly, this fight slaps hard. Now, he stepped into the chaos because he wanted to protect humanity and, more importantly, his daughter, showing that beneath all the strength, there's a man with heart and purpose driving every move. Watching Captain Shinomiya go toe-to-toe with Kaiju number 9 is brutal and exhilarating at the same time. This is what peak human combat ability looks like, and even the scariest Kaiju has to respect that. The fight shows perfectly the difference between someone who's strong for a title and someone who's strong because they've mastered strategy, timing, and mental fortitude. With our time.